Batavia.
That's right, WGCC 90.7 FM with Batavia's best music. Cody here with Andrew Reams. How are you, Andrew?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me.
It's good to be with you, Andrew. Now, Andrew is somebody who many out here may not be familiar with. However, nearly 100,000 people online are familiar with, specifically on YouTube and other social media platforms. Andrew, who are you and exactly why do this many people know you?
Well, my name is Andrew Reams. I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, but live in Roanoke, Virginia. I'm an adult with autism, and I love elevators.
Elevators. Now, that is actually a common interest, shockingly enough. I wonder how I know you. Interesting. So what is it about elevators that you like?
Well, it's like this. Ever since I was a little kid, I've loved elevators. I can remember the first time, it was probably not my first elevator ride ever, but the first elevator ride I ever remember was at a shopping center called West County Mall in the St. Louis area. We were in the famous bar department store, and Mom said we needed to go downstairs and we're going to take the elevator. So we come up to this wall with a little button on it, and Mom picks me up to press the button, and this wall opens up, and I was scared. I didn't want to go in there. She said, we're going to go in there. It's going to close and open up somewhere else. So we get in there. The doors close in ladies' lingerie, and 30 seconds later open up in the electronics department. I'm like, that was fun. I want to do that again. And ever since then, I've been hooked on elevators. I'm an adult with autism. One of the characteristics of autism is a fixation on things. Well, mine happens to be elevators.
And do you take that back to that very moment, or do you think there's something else later in life that kind of got you started?
Ever since that moment, I've been hooked on elevators. Pretty much. I was about 2 years old, and yeah.
So you mentioned, of course, you're an adult with autism. You want to, if you're willing to explain on that a little bit, kind of tell me what it's like growing up with that, and kind of what you went through and what you go through nowadays.
Of course, I would be happy to. I've had problems my entire life. Ever since I was a little kid, again, I was different. I had trouble in school. I had trouble behaving. I got thrown out of multiple schools. I couldn't control myself. I was originally diagnosed with ADHD when I was younger, and they put me on some ADHD meds. It helped out some, but not really. And when I was a teenager, I was officially diagnosed with autism because when I was when I was 14 years old, I was having so many behavioral problems and I guess cognitive problems. Not like motor skills, but I could not focus on anything. And my parents, when I was 14 years old, were told that I would not be able to lead a normal life, and I would probably at best be in a group home or something because I was unable to function normally.
So they didn't have high hopes for you at all?
Actually, no. It wasn't until I was about 15 or 16 that they started having hopes. When I was pretty much from basically the time I hit puberty is when I was told, I wasn't told, but my parents were told that I would be unable to be independent.
Wow. So obviously this is something that, not just you go through, a lot of people go through, and I can't imagine, did you know this at that time, or is this kind of stuff that you've learned later on? If you knew this, I can't imagine, going through your teen years with this in the back of your mind, is there really no hope? Am I going to be stuck in this situation?
I did not know that at that time, because obviously my parents are not going to tell me this. But what I did know is I had a lot of problems. I got thrown out of every public school in St. Louis because I could not behave myself. I had very poor and failing grades. I basically could not function. I knew something was wrong with me. I got bullied in school. I knew something was wrong with me, but the only thing that kept me going through the whole thing was the love of my family.
So you obviously, I mean, at least you had a very good supportive family behind your back.
If I had not had a good and supportive family behind my back and people like Darlene Marlowe, I would not be sitting here in this room right now.
Well, that's one thing that, you know, obviously you're very fortunate to have had. And I know that there's a lot of people who are in, you know, a very similar situation, you know, young adults or children who may or may not have a supportive family or friends behind their back. So kind of leading into this elevaTOURs thing, why don't you tell us about that and kind of where all of this connects in?
What is elevaTOURs? elevaTOURs is basically my online persona. More specifically, DieselDucy. Basically, elevaTOURs spawned out of my love of elevators and taking it to the internet. Back before the internet, specifically YouTube, I was really embarrassed to tell anyone I liked elevators because it's a rather weird and niche interest. Well, anyway, I mean, in 1993, I'm not going to tell the whole story because it's hours long, but in 1993, I had the opportunity to go to Atlanta, Georgia, thanks to my dad's secretary, Darlene Marlowe, and videotape the elevators at the Marriott Marquis, because ever since 1988, it had been my dream to go down there and videotape those elevators, because video cameras were huge and bulky back then and expensive, and Darlene's sister had just gotten a handy cam, so I got to go down there and do it. Well, anyway, I videotaped those elevators in 1993. I got my own camera in 2000, and I did some more videos with it. Obviously, I'm the only one getting to watch them. Well, anyway, fast forward to February 2007. I hired on with Norfolk Southern Railway, and their training center was down in Atlanta. And in October 2006, I was very active on a site called Flickr, and still am. It's a photo sharing site, and a friend of mine at the time named Bill Zarella told me about this thing called YouTube. And I said, what's YouTube? He said, it's like Flickr for videos. I'm like, well, I don't really do many videos. So I just went ahead and signed up under my online persona that I still use today, DieselDucy. Well, anyway, now we're in February 2007. I'm down in Atlanta on a day off, and I'm like, hey, I'm going to go film the 1993 elevators and put them on that YouTube and see if anyone watches them. So I uploaded these videos to YouTube and forgot about them. About 2 or 3 months later, I kept getting all these emails to my AOL account. Comment on YouTube, subscriber on YouTube, comment on YouTube. And I start wondering, I was like, I open them up and it's pointing to my YouTube channel, and I go look at the 2 videos I shot, and they had hundreds of views. And my eyes about popped out of my head, and I'm like, who's watching this stuff?
Who is watching a square box go up and down?
I'm like, who's watching this stuff? Well, I start going through all these comments, and apparently it's a lot of young adults with autism asking me to go film more videos. So at that point right there, there's a lot of other people that do it, but I am the original. I pioneered the genre of elevator videography on YouTube. And basically, at that point, I realized I was onto something. And so every opportunity I got, I took my little Sony T1 camera out and videotaped elevators and put them up on YouTube. And my view count and subscriber count grew quite a bit. And I'm at almost 100,000 right now. And yeah, it just took off to the point where now I basically am a role model and have started an entire community of people who follow in my footsteps and videotape elevators.
Imagine that, from a young diagnosed autistic child who nobody really had hope for, to somebody with the largest online following for the elevator community as a whole and elevator enthusiasts alike. I mean, that is a very, very large and successful ladder to have climbed. And especially in your situation, it is, you know, remarkable and flattering, and, you know, it's great to hear that, you know, that you've been so fortunate. We're going to come back in just a moment after a little bit. Bob Seeger, take a little music break, just 3 minutes, and we'll be back. And when we come back, we'll be talking with Andrew some more and we'll start connecting this elevaTOURs to the autism outreach that has sprung from this love of elevators. And we're back, Cody and Andrew, 90.7 on your FM dial. Andrew Reams is here for an exclusive 90.7 interview. Welcome back, Andrew.
Well, thank you for having me again, Cody. It's been a pleasure being here.
Oh, it's been a pleasure having you here.
So I love Western New York. It's a wonderful place.
Yeah, Western New York is a very lovely area. Batavia, Rochester, Attica. I know we have some listeners down in Attica that reach out to us quite often. Brockport, of course. Yeah, it's a very lovely area out here. So back to what we were talking about. So, we've mentioned that, ever since a child, you've gotten this very unique satisfaction in elevators. And, you're an adult with autism, and we've heard a lot about kind of what you've gone through growing up with autism. So these two things have kind of combined. Why don't you tell us about that?
Basically, elevaTOURs by DieselDucy has gone from just being someone that loves taking pictures and videos of elevators to doing it with a mission. The whole mission of elevaTOURs by DieselDucy is summed up in my mission statement: doing good for others. Basically, I started by just uploading the videos to YouTube just for fun. It was just for fun, and then I started getting emails from parents of children who had similar conditions to mine. Now, these kids aren't on YouTube; they're just watching my videos, and these parents are saying, "Thank you so much for what you do. You give us hope for my child." And I'm trying to figure out, what do you mean? It took me a while to get it. And then it all of a sudden lit up. I'm like, wait a minute. The reason these parents are saying I'm giving them hope for their child is because I essentially was told that I was not going to lead a normal life.
And here you are leading not only a normal life, but a very successful one.
I don't know if I like to use the word successful. I like to use the word fulfilling, because success can be defined by one person as having a lot of money, or another person having a fancy car, or another person just being able to get a job at McDonald's. There's different degrees of success. How I like to define it is fulfilling, because ever since I was a little kid, it has been my dream to make the world a better place, even if it's just in a teeny tiny way. And I feel through elevaTOURs and my YouTube and my elevator museum, which I'll get to later, I have been able to accomplish that for several people. And even if it was just one person, it makes all of it worth it, because I have spoken at autism support groups and conventions about what I've been through, and that a big thing I like to convey is, just because you have autism, or I don't even like to use the word disability, just because you have autism or some other difference in your life doesn't mean you can't lead a happy and productive life. As a matter of fact, I don't want to be normal. I do not want to be normal. I am glad I have autism, because if I was normal, I would be boring. My autism is what makes me who I am. Some people get me, some people don't, but all I have to say is, if you get me, I'm very happy, but if you don't, it's your loss. Because I'm not going to change who I am to make other people happy. I did that when I was younger. It didn't work. And that's something I try to tell these parents and the kids themselves. Don't shame your kid if they have a weird interest, like elevators, toilets, fire alarms, light fixtures, door hardware. Don't shame your child. If any parents of autistic children are listening, I want to get this out. Do not shame your child for any of their interests. But at the same time, don't let that interest become an obsession. Because when an interest becomes an obsession, then it becomes toxic and harmful. If you have a kid who is, say, interested in elevators, take them out. Take them on 2 or 3 elevators. After that, that's it. You don't want to let this feed their life. And that's another thing I've come across through elevaTOURs, is some of these other elevator YouTubers, their parents have done nothing to manage their autism, and they are absolute disasters.
Yeah, I know that autism can be a very, I guess I don't really know what the proper would be, a complicated animal to deal with, especially from a parental level.
It's very complicated.
Yes.
Because autism is such a wide spectrum. You have people like me who it used to be called Asperger's syndrome. Now it's called high-functioning autism, all the way down to people at the bottom of the spectrum who can barely speak or function.
Right. people who might not be able to communicate. I know that's a big thing, is lack of communication skills.
Another trait of autism is not understanding social norms. I still struggle with that sometimes. Not understanding social norms, not getting social cues, not knowing what's appropriate when, poor conversation skills, and also getting sensory overload. I deal with that sometimes too. And another thing I would like to get out is if you're a parent of an autistic child and he's experiencing sensory overload, you need to isolate him. You need to get him away from what's overstimulating him. Don't force him to be around like loud noises. Don't force him. You need to realize what your child has and what he needs or she needs.
Yeah, so I know that, and I mean, obviously from knowing you and from some of the things you've been saying here, that a big portion of elevaTOURs is helping the parents of these children, you know, kind of, I don't want to say deal with because it makes it sound, you know, bad, but,
mentor.
You know, mentor their, you know, their children or friends' children or cousins or, you know, whoever they know of a younger or maybe not even younger age through, you know, their differences.
Exactly. I'm not going to name any names out of respect for privacy, but I have helped several families with several kids successfully work with their child, and they have turned out to be successful adults.
Yeah, that is, you know, I mean, that's a very fulfilling thing to hear. And I'll put a little 2 cents in here, too. I know back about a year ago, the group of us had gotten together up here, and somebody found out that you were in town and they knew you, and their children followed you, and they reached out, and we met up with them, and I mean, I watched those children's eyes when they saw you, and they were, I mean, obviously their, you know, children were somewhere on the spectrum, and they were just, you know, they were amazed that they had seen you, and I know you talked with their mother for a bit, and that was a very fulfilling thing for me to see.
It took me a while to really grasp the scope of things, but I had a visitor in Roanoke probably in about 2014 when it all clicked. I'm like, why are these kids so excited to see me? Because, like I said, I don't look at myself as some celebrity. I just look at myself as a guy that likes elevators and enjoys having a good time in life. But apparently, I guess, to some people, I am a small celebrity, and this parent summed it up. No one has ever summed it up better. Andrew? To them, these parking garages are their Disney World, and you're their Mickey Mouse. And at that point, that's when it all clicked.
Yeah. Yeah, because you are somebody who, you know, you have a very similar interest, and, you know, you have very similar differences to a lot of them, and they look up to you, and they rely on you for mentorship, not even in a direct way. You know, they watch your videos, and they might, because you do some live streams too with your YouTube, which we'll get into your YouTube in a moment, and you know, they can connect with you, and they can use you as an inspiration and as a mentor, not even directly.
Exactly.
So speaking of the YouTube, let's get into that a little bit. So you mentioned obviously your YouTube. Why don't you tell us a little bit about exactly what you do with it, and also mention the museum while we're at it.
All right. I'm sure some of y'all watching the live stream, but I don't know if anyone listening to this broadcast knows much about who I am or what I do. My YouTube channel, as I said earlier, is DieselDucy. And basically what I do, my YouTube channel is a variety channel with a primary focus on elevators. Basically what I do is I go all over the world taking videos of elevators, uploading them to YouTube, and people will watch them. I also do live streams where those are more personal, where I will actually sit down one-on-one and talk with my fans or show them something in real time. But YouTube itself is just a place to share videos and obviously build a following.
And that following kind of, you know, it's probably that YouTube is obviously the biggest portion of elevaTOURs, but I know that your biggest, I guess, location right now is the elevaTOURs Elevator Museum.
Yes. Before I get into the Elevator Museum, I have to say one more thing about my YouTube. As far as being rewarding to me, one of the most rewarding things I have gotten out of this YouTube channel is not all the followers or the AdSense money, but it has brought some of my best friends I've ever had in my life to me. So by putting myself out there and trying to do stuff for other people, in turn it has benefited me immensely through the relationships I've built through this YouTube.
Yeah, so I can speak a little personally on that because, I mean, in fact, and we have a third person in the room too, which we don't have a microphone for, so he's just kind of in the corner running a live stream on another YouTube channel too that's affiliated. But yeah, so I mean, him and I are both personal friends of yours, and we all met through a similar interest in elevators. And even people who don't share the same differences, I mean, can still have the same interest and be friends too. Now, speaking of this, let's get into the museum, because I know that's become a very big portion of elevaTOURs recently. I know you have a bunch of interactive exhibits, and people can schedule visits. Tell us about that, because I think that's something people need to know about. Once you finish on it.
The elevaTOURs Elevator Museum, from a legal point of view, is a small private, actually not so small, private collection of elevator parts that I own, and I keep them in a storage unit in Roanoke, Virginia, where I display them and people can come and enjoy them. Basically, the elevaTOURs Elevator Museum is a playground for any autistic or non-autistic elevator fan that just wants to come in and be able to push buttons, make noises, see actual elevator movements. I mean, we have an elevator simulator in there that functions just like an actual elevator, and that my partner in elevaTOURs, Jason, set up.
The camera.
Yeah, the one holding the camera. He set that up. Aaron Stone, also another person that helps out elevaTOURs, wired up a floor indicator to cycle like a real Otis floor indicator. And how the museum works is, obviously it's on the internet, elevatorfan.com. Click on the museum, schedule a visit. People email me and schedule visits, and I try my best to accommodate them, but due to my horrible work schedule, sometimes we have to shuffle around a little bit. But these people come to the museum, and when I open up that door, it's just like the Mickey Mouse thing. These kids are in heaven, and some of them have experienced sensory overload to where they have to take a break and go outside for a minute. It is basically an elevator playground for autistic people, as well as for like people that just appreciate elevators in general. We have some historic exhibits there, like an old Burwack car switch. We have some old Otis elevator stuff. We have elevator pieces from all over the world on display, and many of them are interactive. Because I had someone ask me why they feel that elevator interest is so common among autistic people. It's because when you think about it, an elevator provides a multi-sensory experience. You have sound, what the elevator makes. You have sight, what the elevator's doing, like the indicators and stuff. You have motion, and you even have, in some cases, smell.
And that is something that, because you mentioned it, I would assume would be attractive to, autistic people, kind of something that they fixate on?
Yes, exactly.
So it's something that they can use to stimulate many, if not all, of their senses all at once, which is something that they probably look for.
Yes, and that's why, like I've said before, I mean, I think the reason an elevator is so attractive to some of these people is because it's a multi-sensory experience.
Yeah, so, as we get, ready to kind of wrap up here, why don't you tell us how people can contact you if they want to visit a museum, or if there's any parents listening out there who would like some advice, or, have an autistic child, or know somebody who could use some help. How can people reach out to you, and, what can you help them with?
If anyone wants to contact me, I absolutely would love to hear from you. My website is elevatorfan.com, or you can email me at elevatorvideos@gmail.com. I know I'm down in Roanoke, and this is the Batavia, New York area, but I come up here sometimes, and I would be more than happy to meet up with you and your family, your child, talk, ride some elevators, take some pictures, discuss autism. Or if you want to come to Roanoke, Virginia, I would love to have you visit the Elevator Museum.
Well, that's very good to know. Is there any last remarks you want to say? Anything that you want to put out there you haven't really touched on?
I guess the whole ongoing theme of this that I would like to get out there is, especially with World Autism Day and stuff coming up, is just because you have autism or any other difference doesn't mean you're different. Doesn't mean you're not normal. doesn't mean you're stupid, doesn't mean you're any less better than anybody else.
Well, Andrew, I want to thank you so much for coming out, and I want to personally thank you for everything that you do for your friends and your family and the strangers that you meet through this, and just, you know, everything that you're doing for the autistic community and their families. I mean, what you're doing here is something that nobody really does. I mean, you know, you get a couple instances here and there, but it's few and far between that you find somebody so dedicated and so understanding of autism and, you know, exactly what is needed. I mean, again, you know, you have it, so, you know, who better than someone with experience, as somebody who's been through that to help. So just thank you very much for everything that you do for everyone. It's amazing.
Well, that's what elevaTOURs is all about. And I want to thank you and WGCC 90.7 Batavia, New York for having me on the air. It has been an absolute pleasure. Western New York, I love you.
Thank you, Andrew, and Western New York, I'm sure, loves you too. Anyway, folks, that is all the time we have at the moment. We've got the Tubes coming up at 90.7 FM. Once again, a big thank you to Andrew Reams. Once again, you can reach him at elevatorfan.com if you'd like to reach out about the Elevator Museum, or if you need or would like help with autism or basically anything relating to what we've talked about tonight. Once again, 90.7 FM, keep it locked. Here come the Tubes.